Chelsea Trader, Half Moon Bay, California. Chelsea smiled as she waited patiently for her grandmother to pour the tea. It took a lot of effort. More now than it had this same time last year. She was slowly starting to slip away. Her body, at least, as the 94-year-old's mind was as sharp as a bag of razors. "Oh dear, I am so sorry. That is far too much for a little thing like you to have to drink," Bella said. She accidentally overpoured Chelsea's teacup, fine china with a pink cherry blossom pattern, something she only brought out for her great-granddaughter during her visits. "It's quite all right. You know I'm more than happy to drink my fill, Granny Belle," Chelsea said. "Nonsense. A lady is served the right amount, and not a drop more, or a drop less," Bella said. "Oh, Granny." Chelsea observed her grandmother wipe the tiny saucer of the excess tea she spilled. Everything in her life was proper, perhaps having more to do with her English upbringing than anything else. Chelsea also knew it had a lot to do with holding on to a time that felt simpler for her. Something she had some measure of control over, given how her age has advanced on the formerly pioneering woman. During the war, even during the worst of it, as the bombs fell around us, I can remember my mother serving my sister and me tea. She had a very particular way about her that I've tried to emulate for as long as I've drawn breath. Yet, I have never quite mastered the art as well as she," Bella said. "You've done fine if you ask me," Chelsea replied. "Aren't you sweet? How you managed to be so different than your father, I will never know." Chelsea sighed at the thought. "I did my best, you know. I lost my daughter, as your father lost a mother. It was a lot of work for me to drop my life and take in a grandchild to raise as my own. Perhaps if I had a man in my life, things might have been different. Sometimes I suppose the apple doesn't fall far from the tree," Bella said. She finished cleaning the saucer before dropping a single sugar cube into her and Chelsea's cups. Stirring, the pure gold spoons clanking was soothing as Chelsea's mouth began to water with anticipation. "Cream, dear?" she asked. "Of course, Granny. Don't I always want cream?" "It is polite to ask, nonetheless." Even as her hands shook terribly, Bella held the creamer as steady as she could. 2 drops dripped into Chelsea's cup before moving on to her own and adding 3. The black tea turned ghostly white as the cream rose to the surface. Chelsea picked up her saucer and cup as her granny had taught, holding the cup properly between her index finger and thumb. She took a small sip and smiled. "This is wonderful, Granny, as always," Chelsea said. "This is wonderful, Granny, as always," Chelsea said. Both women stared at one another for a minute, not saying another word as they both enjoyed the hot beverage before carefully setting the teacup and saucer back onto the table. "And how is that big lug of a father of yours these days? I do not think I've seen him going on 2.5 years now, even though we are only a short train ride apart," Bella asked. Chelsea sighed again. She did not like to talk about her father all that much. She wished the man would give more time to come and visit the woman who raised him following his mother and father's tragic death in an automobile crash 40 years ago. "He's busy, as usual," Chelsea replied. "Still managing that empire of his?" Bella asked. "A crumbling one," Chelsea replied. "The new state laws are making it more difficult for him to acquire a property. When he does, the amount of taxes he has to pay is quite a lot. He's barely keeping his head above water," she added. "So is the fate of a pirate," Bella said, her voice showing more than a hint of sarcasm. "He's not a pirate, Granny," Chelsea chuckled. "He and that wife of his take people's homes and resell them for profit. If that isn't a pirate, then I don't know what a pirate is." "Well, maybe. He certainly does not have a peg leg and a talking bird on his shoulder." "He does own a huge boat, though," Chelsea said. Both women laughed as they sipped more tea. "And you, my dear, how's work?" Bella asked. "Difficult. I know I went to school for this, but it is much harder than I ever thought," Chelsea said. "Oh?" Chelsea corrected herself. "I don't mean hard like I can't do it. I mean, it is difficult to be around people that I can't always help." "I understand. Nevertheless, what you're doing is very important. At least you can bring comfort to those that won't get better. That is very important, perhaps more so than you know." "Thank you, Granny. I just wish Dad and Mom saw it that way. I don't think either of them has forgiven me for dropping out of Stanford," Chelsea said. "You did what you felt was right," Besides, there's always a time to go back to school. Look at me. I did not receive my master's degree until I was in my 60s, Bella said. I know, but things are a little different now, Granny. There are more expectations today than there were in your day, Chelsea said. Oh, nonsense. Women have always had expectations placed on their shoulders far more than most men do. You'll do fine. And even if your mother and father can't get their heads out of their collective asses, and see how you've grown into a strong and caring woman, I at least can. I'm proud of you, Chelsea. A tear came to Chelsea's eyes as her granny rested her hand on hers. Thank you. That means a lot to me, Chelsea said. The ringing of a bell tolled, interrupting the peaceful quiet between the two women. Oh, marvelous. It is bingo time, Bella said, beaming. What do you say we go teach these old fuddy-duddies a thing or two? Bella asked. I would love to, Chelsea replied. Chelsea spent the next couple of hours at her granny's retirement community playing bingo. Before dinner, they took a walk on the beach. Chelsea adored these moments with her granny, knowing that each time she spent with her was one fewer she had left. She always related to the older woman more than her parents. She hated to admit it, but it was the truth. I think you're right, Granny. I need to move out of their house and find an apartment, even if I can't afford to right now. Better to live in a cardboard box than stay another year, Chelsea said. That would be wise, Bella agreed. You are much stronger than either me or your parents, my dear. I've always known that. You'll land on your feet, she added. Gripping her granny's hand, they were silent as both watched the sun go down. Off in the distance, thick storm clouds were blowing towards the coast, as flashes of lightning could just barely be made out as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon. Chelsea woke to a drizzle of rain beating against the window. She was laying on the floor, wrapped in a heavy quilt, and two soft pillows under her head. Behind her, lying asleep in her bed, was her great-grandmother, blissfully deep in her dreams, most likely remembering a time long past. Chelsea rose, quietly picked up her bed, and folded everything into a neat pile before putting it into a tall antique dresser cabinet. In another month, she would return, pull them out, and sleep next to her granny as she had always done since she was a little girl. For now, life was calling her back. With a deep sigh, she knew she had to make some difficult choices in the next few days. 30 minutes later, Chelsea was outside the retirement village. She wore a jogging suit and a hoodie. The air was nippy, with a wet taste to it. The storm that had been out to sea had brushed over the west coast shortly after she and her granny returned to the community to enjoy the rest of their night watching old black and white movies. Right now, there was still some rain lazily falling. Checking her watch, she saw she had 3 hours until the first train back to the city departed the station. There was just enough time to jog a couple of miles down the beach, return for her things, say goodbye to Granny, and get back to San Francisco just before her shift at the hospital. She put a pair of wireless earbuds on and tuning in to her favorite Johnny Cash album. Then, she took off at a slow jog down the winding path that led to the beach. Chelsea enjoyed the softness of the sand. Her feet dug into the smooth surface that felt as if the whole beach had been freshly paved over. She must have run this same path 100 times over the years and enjoyed every moment. At this early hour, the sun has not risen. However, the community was peaceful and typically woke later in the morning. So, Chelsea had the whole beach to herself. About 45 minutes into her jog, just as the song Ring of Fire started to play, a strange sound forced Chelsea to stop and pull her earbuds out to listen more carefully. It sounded again, a peculiar grinding of metal as waves bashed against it. She could not see what it was, not yet. She hadn't rounded the cliff that blocked her view. The grinding that sounded like a beached metal monster continued as Chelsea steadied her pace and continued along the beach. Some more objects were on shore. To her surprise, most of it was clothes. This wasn't unusual necessarily, as cargo ships often lost whole crate loads of goods that eventually washed up on a beach somewhere in the world. Finally, as she went around the outcrops of rocks that jutted from the cliff, she saw it. A container ship had run aground. The bow of the ship was jammed between an outcrop of rocks. More containers were washed up, all along the vessel with piles of clothes and other effects. Soaking wet, coming and leaving with the ebb and flow of the tide.
My word!
Chelsea said. She quickly took her cell phone out of her pocket and dialed 911. It rang twice before an operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? Hello, my name is Chelsea Trader. I'm not sure how to describe this, but I was jogging on the beach and I came across a big cargo ship. Unfortunately, there does not seem to be anyone that I can see. As far as I know, I might be the first person on the scene. But anyway, I think you'd better send someone and check this out in case someone on board is hurt. Excuse me? But did you say a ship? The operator asked. Yes, a huge one. It says on the front... Chelsea strained her eyes as she tried to get a good look at the lettering on the ship's bow in the low light. The Voyager Dawn? Okay, thank you. We'll have a patrol car there as soon as possible. Please, Miss Trader, remain where you are to give a statement when the officer arrives, and I would advise you stay away from the ship in the meantime. Okay, thank you. Hello? Is anyone there? She shouted. There was no reply, even though her voice carried well. She continued moving forward, using the flashlight on her phone's back to see better as she crossed over the rocks along the shoreline's edge. Hello? She called out again. I called the police. They should be here shortly to help if anyone needs assistance. There still was no reply. She thought it was strange that there were no signs of a crew. Her high school boyfriend had become a mariner, so she knew that a ship this size should at least have a crew of 20. It was then, in what little dim light she could see by, that she saw what looked like a man crawling along the beach, away from the wreckage of the Voyager Dawn. Hey! Stay there! I'm on my way! Chelsea cried out as loud as she could. She carefully moved down through the rocks and back onto the sandy beach, running as quickly as her legs could take her to the man. Hey! Are you okay? Chelsea dropped to her knees right beside the man. Grabbing him, she carefully rolled him over. She saw he was wearing a Navy uniform. The man's eyes were wide and blood red. She realized that blood was coming out of his sockets, nose, ears, and mouth. I'm a nurse. I'm here to help, Chelsea said. The man struggled to say something, even trying to push her away from him as he gasped for words. Hey, relax. I'm trying to help you. Just as she finished her words, she heard sirens coming down the road above the beach. Some words now escaped the man's voice as he repeated the same thing over and over. Pengu. Pengu. Released. Pengu. Wait. What are you trying to say? Chelsea asked. She leaned closer to him, feeling helpless despite her training. She simply did not know what to do for the man, not without proper equipment. Released, the man said with incredible effort. What? No, I cannot. I won't let you go. I have to get you some help, Chelsea said, believing the man wanted her to release him. Flashing lights from a police cruiser could be seen as it parked on a cliffside. Hello? I need help! There's a man down here and he needs medical attention! Chelsea shouted as loud as she could. She screamed again just as a flashlight from above was cast down at her. Hey! This man needs medical attention! Call an ambulance! Chelsea said. You're going to be all right, Chelsea said, looking down at the man in her arms. An hour later, Chelsea watched as the sailor she had found was zipped tightly into a black bag. He died 5 minutes after the first officer had arrived on the scene. She felt guilty for having somehow failed the man. If only she knew what was wrong with him and the extent of his injuries. She thought she might have been able to help him better. Chelsea hardly heard the officer standing before her, with a blanket wrapped around her as he asked his last question. Excuse me? She replied. Was he the only crew member of the ship you had contact with? The officer asked. Yes, just him. Is it all right if I get a ride back to my grandmother's place? I would like to take a shower. I need to get back to the city in a few hours. I'm sure that can be arranged, Miss Trader. If we have any further questions for you, we know how to reach you, the officer replied. Sure, of course. Sure, of course. I think it might have brought him comfort in those final moments. I know it would have me if I were in his place. Chelsea nodded as she rubbed her hands, failing to get the dried blood from the man off her fingers.